My name is Nora Ellison. I'm 33 years old, and for most of those years, I've been my sister's rehearsal prop, quiet, convenient, and forgettable. At least that's who I was. Until the night everything changed. It happened at her engagement party, one of those extravagant affairs held at the Langford Hotel, where the walls glitter and the people do too. Everyone was there, friends, family, Darren's business partners, even our old neighbors who hadn't spoken to me in years, but somehow found seats right up front. Lila, my younger sister, the bride-to-be, stood under a chandelier the size of my apartment. She clinked her glass, smiled that toothpaste commercial smile, and grabbed the microphone like she'd won something. "Meet my maid of honor," she chirped. Oh, wait. No, never mind. She did a fake pout, then scanned the room until her eyes found me. Too ugly for the title. Had to find someone more photogenic. Laughter. Full, genuine laughter. Our parents clapped. Aunt Grace raised her wine. I didn't flinch. I smiled. Then I stepped forward and handed Darren a small white box tied with silver ribbon. I raised my glass and said only two things. To love, I said, and to getting exactly what you deserve. The music skipped, and in the second it took Darren to untie that ribbon, the entire room turned from golden warmth to cold silence. No one was laughing anymore, and for the first time in my life, neither was I. I grew up in a 3-bedroom colonial just outside of Glenford, the kind with white shutters and a porch swing that never quite stopped creaking. From the outside, it looked like the picture of suburban contentment, but inside our family had an unspoken script, and I was always in the background of every scene. Lila, 2 years younger, arrived into the world demanding center stage, and our parents were happy to build it for her. She sparkled, and they polished her brighter. I listened, studied, folded my emotions into small, quiet shapes. When she twirled in the living room for guests, I was the one serving lemonade. When she won a regional dance trophy, I was the one who sewed the rhinestones onto her costume the night before. There's a difference between being loved quietly and being completely overlooked. I didn't realize that until college, when my roommate once asked, "Do your parents ever ask how you're doing?" I had paused, genuinely unsure how to answer. Over the years, Lila grew bolder in the way she took up space. Not just in the family, but in mine. When I got accepted into a publishing internship, she announced her own surprise acceptance into a boutique PR firm our uncle chaired. When I brought home a guy I liked, Evan, from the library where I worked, she flirted with him until he stopped returning my texts. She called it harmless. "I'm just being me," she'd say. "It's not my fault men prefer a little sparkle." What made it worse was how normalized it became. My mother would shrug and say, "You know your sister, she's dramatic." Dad would add, "You can't take things so personally, Nora. You're the strong one." The strong one. As if being hurt in silence was some kind of virtue. I learned how to navigate family dinners like a ghost, helping Mom in the kitchen, laughing in all the right places, never pushing back, even when Lila made jokes at my expense. Like the time she said I looked like a before picture in a skincare commercial. Even the cousins laughed at that one. And I let it slide like I always did. But something shifted this year. Maybe it was how my boss at the library looked me in the eye and said, "You've got backbone, Ellison. You just hide it well." Maybe it was how I'd started enjoying my quiet routines, my apartment above the bookstore, my Tuesday tea with Mrs. Halpern from downstairs, the satisfaction of order and words and silence that didn't have to be explained. Or maybe it was the text Lila sent me 2 months before the engagement party. "Want to help with decorations? You're good at boring stuff." I stared at those words for 10 full minutes. And that was the moment I decided I wouldn't let her write the ending anymore. It started with my mother calling me in a panic one Thursday evening. "Nora, sweetheart, I need your help," she said, already breathless. "Lila wants the engagement slideshow to be perfect, but the computer won't cooperate. Can you come tomorrow? She's counting on me, and you know, I'm hopeless with technology." I should have said no. I should have reminded her that I was scheduled for Saturday reading circle, or that I had weekend inventory at the library. But I heard that same old tremble in her voice, the one that made me a helper long before I knew how to say no. So the next morning, I showed up at my parents' house, where the living room still smelled like floor polish and old perfume. The dining table was covered in photo albums, USB cords, and my mom's frustration. She wants this whole timeline of their love story, Mom muttered, clicking fruitlessly. Meeting, first date, vacations. She even asked me to pull up the old family cloud folder. I don't even know how to access it anymore. I did. It took me 20 minutes to retrieve the password Lila had created. And that's when the notifications began popping up: unread messages, synced accounts, and one unfamiliar sender. Bo R. A name I didn't recognize. A message that read, "He's out of town again. Bring that champagne you love." At first I thought it was some wedding vendor, but curiosity has a way of peeling back layers. One click led to another, and suddenly I was staring at years of private messages between Lila and someone who very clearly wasn't Darren. And then came the videos. Candid, intimate, time-stamped. Some dated just weeks before the engagement announcement. In one, Lila leaned back in a hotel bed, wine glass in hand, laughing. I'm marrying him for the money. She told Bo his real name was listed in her phone as Bo Ramsey. Give it 2 years and I'll walk away with half his family's inheritance. The air left my lungs. In another, she mentioned me. Nora. She still thinks I actually care. She's helping with the slideshow, like for free. It's hilarious. My hands were shaking, but my thoughts were sharp. I didn't cry. I didn't call her. I copied everything onto a flash drive, cleared the history, and returned to the living room, like nothing happened. And as I zipped up my laptop bag, I smiled. Not the smile they'd taught me. Something colder, something earned. After that day, everything I did was calculated. I knew Lila. She was predictable in the worst way, impulsive, showy, and addicted to control. The more attention she got, the sloppier she became. That meant I couldn't confront her outright, not yet. I needed a stage, one she wouldn't be able to escape once the lights came on. So I texted her 2 days later, cheerful as ever. Need help with the florist or music cues? I'm happy to pitch in. She responded within 5 minutes. Yes, finally. Thought you were going to be useless again. Typical. I offered to double-check the slideshow order, reach out to the venue, even manage the background music playlist. Every task she handed me felt like a rope she didn't realize I was braiding tighter around her. The flash drive, I labeled it for the projector and taped it under the top tray of my makeup kit. I rehearsed my toast nightly in the mirror, glass in hand, working on the balance between grace and blade. To love, I would say, and to getting exactly what you deserve. Even now, I hear it like a spell waiting to be cast. Meanwhile, I played the part of the supportive sister perfectly. I laughed when she bragged about how Darren had finally proposed, listened while she mocked his family's conservative values, and nodded when she described the designer dress that cost more than my rent. Try not to look too plain next to me, okay? She teased once. Why? I want everyone to know we're related, but not confused about who's the bride. I let it roll off me as I always had. But this time, it wasn't weakness. It was precision. During one of our planning meetings, Darren stopped by with catering forms. He looked tired. Not physically, but soul-tired, like someone who was constantly performing in a play he hadn't auditioned for. His smile was distant. His eyes drifted when Lila talked. He glanced at me once, as he left, almost like he wanted to say something. I said nothing. Not yet. By the time the engagement party approached, every moving part was in place. The projector, the playlist, the champagne, and the truth. Waiting in my purse like a loaded weapon no one suspected I carried. The Langford ballroom smelled like roses and effort. Crystal chandeliers cast polished light across polished people, and somewhere beneath it all, I stood invisible, as always, but calm. Not numb, not bitter. Just steady. Like someone who knew how the night would end before it even began. I arrived early, as Lila demanded, wearing a navy blue dress she once called funeral chic. It was simple, clean, forgettable, just the way she liked me. The venue staff buzzed around like bees with platinum headsets. Lila floated in an hour later, a vision in sequins and self-satisfaction. She didn't notice how the staff's smiles stiffened around her. She didn't notice the way Darren's jaw tightened every time she spoke. But I did. She barely greeted me before ordering check that the projector's working and cue the playlist. I don't want another one of your tech hiccups. Then she kissed the air near my cheek and moved on to someone more important. I made my way to the sound booth. The technician looked confused when I handed him a flash drive labeled Engagement Slideshow. All synced, I asked. He nodded. Yeah, want me to run it after the toast, exactly. People started arriving in waves, his family in muted silks and dark suits, hers in louder fabrics and louder voices. My parents floated between groups like political figures at a fundraiser telling everyone how proud they were, how both girls turned out so different but equally special. I didn't speak much. I watched. From the corner near the champagne tower, I saw it unfold exactly as I'd envisioned. Lila called for attention with a spoon against a flute, basked in the moment, and then, without warning, turned it into a punchline. My sister Nora, she chirped. Some people thought she'd be my maid of honor, but, come on. We want this album to look good, right? Laughter broke like a wave. Even my father chuckled. I took a slow breath. Then I stepped forward, smiling. I brought you a gift, I said, holding the small white box out to Darren. Something I thought you both should see. He blinked. The crowd quieted. Lila's smile dimmed. To love, I said, raising my glass, and to getting exactly what you deserve. The room hushed. At first it was just confusion. People assumed I was making a sentimental gesture, something sweet and awkward from the overlooked sister. Even Lila tried to brush it off with a laugh that sounded too sharp. Ah, how thoughtful, she said, her voice a little too high. Is it earrings or a poem? Darren, open it. She worked so hard. But Darren didn't move right away. He turned the small white box over in his hands. His brows knit. Then slowly, he pulled at the ribbon and lifted the lid. Inside, the silver flash drive gleamed like a scalpel waiting for skin. Someone in the back murmured, "Play it on the projector." Lila froze. Darren looked at me. I nodded once. There's a reason it's labeled Engagement Slideshow. He walked without a word to the technician near the sound booth. The man glanced toward me for confirmation. I gave it with a single nod, and then the screen came alive. At first it was subtle. Lila's face on screen laughing. A hotel room in the background, wine glass in hand. Audio kicked in a second later. Aiden, stop recording me. You're terrible. Laughter. She threw a pillow. The room chuckled. Until, of course I'm going to marry him. Do you know how much his family is worth? 2 years max? Then I file. Half of it becomes mine. Easy. The laughter died. On screen, Lila sipped her wine. And Nora, she's making the slideshow. I didn't even ask. She's like, built to be used. She thinks I love her. Someone gasped. Darren stood motionless, fists clenched. Turn that off, Lila snapped. That's private. That's fake. She edited it. But then the second clip started. The same room, same timestamp. But this time, with both of them, Lila and Aiden, kissing, laughing, plotting. You think Darren suspects anything? Please, Lila scoffed. He's too busy trying to impress his father. The ballroom was silent. All you could hear was the air conditioning kicking on, and a crystal glass someone dropped near the bar. And in that moment, I realized something simple and stunning. I wasn't the punchline anymore. Lila was. And she knew it. Lila lunged. Not toward Darren, toward the technician. Turn it off! She shrieked, her voice cracking in a way I'd never heard before. You don't have permission to play that. This is defamation. This is criminal. But Darren stepped in front of her. One hand raised his voice level and cold. Let it finish. She faltered. For a moment, her mouth opened like she was going to argue, then closed again. On screen, the next video began her bragging to Aiden about Darren's trust fund, about timing the prenup just right, about letting Nora run errands to keep her distracted. People were shifting now. Chairs scraped against the floor. My aunt whispered something sharp to my mother. Darren's father, Mr. Kingsley, stepped forward from the back, jaw set tight. You signed our agreement in bad faith. He said, his voice steady but lethal. Any legal protection you hope to gain is void. That was fraud, Miss Ellison. Lila turned on him. You can't talk to me like that. You don't know what she's done. Nora set this up. She's jealous. She's always been jealous. Darren reached for her hand. Not to hold it. To take the ring. She resisted at first, but he didn't let go. I was ready to marry you, he said, quiet but audible, even when things didn't feel right. I thought maybe it was the stress, the pressure. But this is who you are. He slid the ring off her finger. Her hand trembled. Her mouth opened again, then collapsed into a strangled sob. I loved you, she whispered. No, he replied. You loved what I had. Then he turned and walked toward the exit, his father behind him, a few friends following. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was judgmental, disbelieving, final. Lila turned to me like I had summoned fire. You destroyed everything, she spat. I didn't flinch. I didn't destroy anything I said. I just let the lights come on. Behind her, the wedding planner approached, with a clipboard and a tight face. Miss Ellison, we need to discuss payment. The venue, the catering. You're the listed primary contact. Lila looked at her like the woman had spoken a foreign language. And that's when I saw it. The first real crack in her mask. The morning after the party, Glenford was quiet. The kind of quiet that feels deliberate, like the town itself was holding its breath. I stood by my window, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee, watching the fog curl along the sidewalks. Across the street, the bakery opened its shutters, and Mrs. Halpern swept her stoop in her lavender slippers like it was any other day. Except it wasn't. Not for me. Not for Lila. And not for anyone who'd been in that ballroom the night before. By 8 a.m., the messages began. Friends, acquaintances, people I hadn't heard from since high school. The video had made it online, short, shaky clips of the projector footage, followed by blurry footage of Darren walking out. Hashtags bloomed like weeds. The comments were ruthless. The headlines sharper than I expected. Bride caught plotting divorce for profit during her own engagement party. I didn't read the threads. I didn't need to. I hadn't done it for the internet. That morning, I watered my herbs, cleaned my bookshelves, and took out the trash like always. And when I passed Mr. Donnelly, the war vet, who lived 2 doors down, he tipped his cap and said, You held your ground, Miss Ellison. I didn't ask how he knew. I just said, thank you. That afternoon, my mother called. I let it ring 4 times before picking up. I don't know what to say, she began, voice softer than I'd ever heard it. Then, maybe don't say anything, I replied. Just listen. She did. To everything. When I finished, there was a long pause on her end. Then quietly, we failed you. I didn't say she was right. I didn't say she was wrong. Some wounds don't close with one apology. But I appreciated that, for once, she hadn't tried to rewrite it. Lila didn't call, but someone told me she'd left town, that her job put her on unpaid leave, that the Kingsley family was considering legal action, that even Madison had cut ties. I didn't feel triumphant, just done. It wasn't about watching her fall. It was about stepping out from under her shadow. For years, I thought being quiet meant being good, that shrinking myself made things easier for everyone, that maybe if I kept giving more one day, I'd be enough. But that night in front of everyone who used to laugh with her, I finally stopped waiting for someone to let me speak. I spoke, and the world shifted. I still live above the same bakery. I still work at the library, still host story time on Thursdays, still drink tea with Mrs. Halpern. But now people look at me differently, not like the sister of someone impressive, not like a shadow. They look at me, and more importantly, I finally look at myself, not with apology, but with something closer to pride, because I didn't set fire to her life. I just stopped holding the water bucket, and sometimes that's all it takes to let the truth burn through.